Now to the Bombay Stock Exchange. Before we get more perspective on global markets, Ashishkumar Chauhan is the Managing Director and CEO. He was the interim CEO, but now he is the MD and CEO of the Bombay Stock Exchange. Ashish, good morning. Thanks for joining in. What's your strategy for the next 1 year, given that the market's going to get only more competitive? At some point, MCX will launch. What is the BSE strategy to retain market share?
The way I look at it, Udyan, is that the first and foremost function an exchange performs is provide orderly markets and provide what I call fair, transparent, efficient and most cost-effective markets. The volumes and others are what I call the races which are artificial, but ultimately the investor interests and investor interests need to be protected by exchange. That should be the foremost framework on which the exchanges should be working on. And so for me, last 3 years have been pretty good for BSE on that count, and going forward BSE will be working basically on creating a trust in the markets for the investors to come back, because you might have seen over last 10 years we have not been able to add many more investors into the stock market. So one is, how do we make stock markets more attractive again? That would be the basic strategy, and behind that the framework of creating orderly markets would be the main theme. But overall we want to create a larger distribution framework, having more members, and as you are aware, ours is the lowest cost memberships, lowest cost transaction fees. We would be been going forward for next 10 years. BSE would be the lowest cost liquidity provider in the country, and so for me there are many strategies, but overall we will have this as the theme of low cost, or rather the lowest cost liquidity provider framework. We would also have a distribution network which will be much larger than what we are today. Already we are somewhere very close to NSE's number of members, but we would be going much above because of the fact that our membership cost is the lowest. We also have new products that have come up recently, but many more new products will come up. For example, mutual funds distribution through exchanges. We have a lion's share. SME, we have more than 90% market share. IPO, we have very large share. QFI, we have very large share. Even for the retail debt, we have sort of more than 60% market share, and so wholesale also we are getting into in a big way. So in a sense, in addition to equities plus derivatives, we have many more sort of options available to the investors, and BSE has kind of picked up many of these pieces, and going forward it will do sort of much more in all these areas. And in addition, any new area that comes up, we would be kind of taking up as leaders in the newer fields also.
You've made some innovations on the cost lowering front this year. Can you just give us some sense of what you plan on that front going forward?
The way we look at it is we have two aspects to the transaction cost. One is what I call the liquidity cost, and the liquidity in that perspective, you need to worry about liquidity which an investor can use for himself. Liquidity actually means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it's more perceptional, but finally what you can use is what is your need, right? So if you require 100 shares, or you want 100 contracts, you go to an exchange and ask for 100 contracts, and not go to an exchange which might be having say 10,000 contracts, because ultimately your need is only 100 contracts. So for me, that perspective needs to be kept in mind, and we have basically got liquidity in many stocks. Almost, I mean, BSE does trade 5,000 stocks, which is largest in the world, and in derivatives also we have been able to sort of attract huge liquidity from proprietary traders, from the algorithm traders, and going forward we are trying to basically get retail people, retail investors to trade in BSE's derivatives. We are also getting FIIs. Many FIIs have started trading on BSE's derivatives. So for me, it's a continuum where we'll continue to innovate, evolve, and sort of change our strategies to ensure that on one side we remain the lowest cost liquidity provider. So to give you an example, in terms of the membership fees, our membership fees is refundable. So if you start a business, you put in 10 lakh rupees, which is actually 20% of the nearest new exchange that is coming up. 20% only, and probably 10% of the existing exchange. And so in 10 lakh rupees refundable deposit, you can start doing a business. And when you become a member, your annual membership is only 5,000 rupees vis-a-vis 5 lakh rupees on new sort of new exchange which is coming up. So in a sense, ours is very, very low cost entry. Similarly, on technology, the broker actually doesn't have to set up a lease line now or a VSET. He can do activities on a cloud-based framework called Fast Trade on Web, which BSE has, and he can open as many branches as he wants. As he can actually have as many customers as he wants, including on mobile, free of cost. So he doesn't have to spend on the technology also. And then going forward, when he trades, our transaction cost on BSE is 99% lower than the newer exchange that is coming up, and 99.5% lower than the older exchange in options premium. And on futures, again, it's much, much lower by 80-90% on futures also. So in essence, anytime you trade on BSE vis-a-vis on other exchanges, you end up actually saving around 90%, irrespective of whether it is a new exchange coming up or an old exchange which is existing. And that is actually a real savings, right? In addition to the incentives BSE may pay, the real savings is actually attracting many more investors. And we are going to evolve going forward in a way that we are going to be what I call nimble and humble going forward.
Good luck then, Ashish. Thanks very much for your time. That's the BSE MD and CEO talking about further innovations. But let's move away to